Hello and welcome to the WVD Community podcast. Today it's the 15th episode and already the first episode of 2021. We want to wish you a happy new year and all the best. Take care of your health. And yeah, I'm here with Neil and Stefan. Welcome you both.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Perfect. And today we have a special guest here who wants to talk about security, all of that related with WVD. Welcome, Simon Binder.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be able to join you.
Super. Hi, Simon. So maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I work as a workplace architect at a Swedish consultancy firm called Trusec. We specialize in security especially, but are moving more and more into the general workplace architecture and implementations as well. So I'm one of the architects there for everything related to workplace and specializes especially in Microsoft 365 and WVD, which is something I've been working with since, I believe it's even November 2018. So I've been with it from the very beginning. And I do everything from like plain architecture, changing the organizations of companies to better adapt to a modern workplace, as well as technical implementations. And I do a lot of community activities as well. And since joining Trusec, what's really overreaching over all of this would be security, and where I do my absolute best to be an advocate for that security isn't necessarily something that will prevent users from doing their job, and it may even be beneficial for them. And that is something I currently apply quite a lot to the WVD community activities and projects I'm part of. And to add to that, I'm also a Microsoft Endpoint Manager MVP. So that's something I find quite interesting in the WVD world as well, where a lot of the people in our community comes from a Citrix or VMware or RDS background, and quite a few of us comes from the physical desktop background. And I think that combination of mindset and technology skills is really what makes WVD unique.
Do you find companies, I mean, obviously you work for a security focused company, right? So, I mean, do you find people find WVD more secure than a normal environment, or do they do WVD? What's the sort of top priorities that customers come to you as, I want to deploy WVD because of this?
Yeah. So I would say that when we do reviews of customers or organizations' infrastructures, we tend to find that their RDS or Citrix or VMware infrastructure have security issues or vulnerabilities that are constantly really like threat actors are searching for them constantly. So WVD is usually added to make that simpler, or to, as we all know during the pandemic, to scale out that infrastructure quite fast. But I would say that it's probably 60 to 70% is more about scale out, new kind of infrastructure, the benefits of cloud. But the rest of the percentage is likely due to security, where many find it easier to configure. But as we have seen over the years, or over the year, we tend to find quite a lot of challenging WVD implementations as well, with some serious security concerns there too. So nothing is better than how you implement it, but WVD as a platform, if you compare it to RDS, is of course a much more secure infrastructure. But then you as a customer have a responsibility to secure the aspects that you are in charge of, like conditional access, the session hosts, and so on.
Yeah, I think Microsoft are definitely getting better though, aren't they? By sort of forcing you to put the secure defaults out of the box, or if you don't, they will by default enable Security Center, which will automatically flag up sort of those flaws for you. So I guess that's another really positive thing about WVD, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in general, Microsoft is getting better and better at encouraging organizations to be a bit more secure. But then you also have some challenges in terms of mindset, I would say, that we, like I just said at a user group, I think we are past the point where a lot of organizations believe that if I have a VM running in Azure, Microsoft will patch that. But on the other hand, I think that Microsoft has done a very good job in ensuring that Azure as a platform is very secure, and that leads to the assumption that whatever I set up there is secure by default. And like you said, it's not. You should follow the recommendations, and there are a couple of things that is absolutely essential, and that you really should adopt to your entire infrastructure, not just WVD, but where WVD may be a very good place to start.
Exactly. And when we talk about the features, about security itself, Simon, what are your favorite recommendations to somebody who starts with WVD in the implementation? With what features should they highlight on?
The absolute minimum, and that goes for any infrastructure, any app, but especially for WVD, would be multi-factor authentication when signing into the service. And that's something every organization have access to today. Everyone that have Azure AD free and upwards have the ability to run multi-factor authentication. There are, of course, considerations with that, and I absolutely recommend to look into conditional access rather than having that multi-factor for everything you authenticate to, which you get in the free SKU. But conditional access and MFA is the bare minimum. And since my company also work quite a lot with incident response, so when organizations have been attacked and in some cases have been actually deleted from the face of the earth from an IT perspective, we see that about half of those incidents is due to lack of MFA. So that's something that is absolutely essential, both in terms of users, regardless of who they are, and that's essential as well. Everyone should have MFA, not just the privileged accounts and so on, but MFA both for the session access to WVD, but also from an administrative point of view, of course.
You see a lot of the advanced features out there. So you got stuff like just in time and PIM and privileged access management. Do you see those deployed often?
Yeah, we see a huge increase of that, and I think we'll see an even bigger increase of that after SolarWinds, especially, which were when the world realized that this is happening. But yeah, I definitely see that, and I think we can also look at that from a usability point of view. So let's take PIM as an example, privileged identity management, where you basically escalate your privileges when you need it. So if you want to administer something, but you could easily do that as a user as well. Say that you add yourself to a privileged group, and that group at the same time publish a new app through WVD to you. So there are a lot of quite interesting proposals which are where you lead with security, but adds a lot of value to a regular user's experience of WVD as well. So I think that we, especially for the management perspective, will see a lot more of that, since WVD is becoming such an essential part of the infrastructure for many organizations.
But those features are only available in the E5 licenses, right?
Yeah.
So I think we should see an increase in E5 licenses usage, or at least for certain accounts.
Yeah, and that's important as well. PIM is definitely something that you could use for only some accounts, but at the same time, I feel that a lot of organizations are now looking towards, especially the add-ons, so the E5 security or E5 compliance, to get up to that level of security. And that goes for small businesses up to really, really large organizations too. So that's definitely something we see deployed more and more often, and that's often the reason is mostly to consolidate security features, I would say. But it's also important to remember that even in an E3 license, or one of my favorite licenses, which is Microsoft 365 Business Premium, you have a lot of really nice features, such as conditional access, which takes you very, very far in terms of what you can do. So don't feel that you need an E5 license, because you can do quite a lot with an E3, and it's better to fully leverage an E3 or a business premium license than just buying an E5 and using 10% of it.
Yep.
But yeah, so the more advanced security features are part of E5, and that includes things like you said with PIM, it includes identity protection, and something that I also feel is quite essential for WVD, which is Defender for Endpoints. Even though some parts of our community don't see that as necessary, I would say that if you have a Windows machine running on any of your networks, that should be protected by some kind of EDR. And I tend to prefer Microsoft Defender for Endpoints in that case, since it's still a Windows machine and an attacker only needs a few minutes to gain a foothold, even on a virtual machine, since the WVD machines in general aren't or non-persistent, as we may be used to from a Citrix point of view, as an example.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fascinating space to work in.
Yeah. and I've been working as a consultant for 11 years or such now, and joined TrueSec 1.5 years ago. And when I did that, a completely new world opened up. Like when you actually get to see what's happening behind the curtains, and what many of my colleagues, especially in the cyberspace, are doing, that's quite extraordinary when you realize the enormous amounts that organizations are paying in ransom when they are encrypted, and how little time an attacker needs to get a foothold and really reach to the point where they're a global admin or domain admin.
It's a classic story, isn't it? Most companies wait until they've been hacked or something's happened, and then they start looking at security.
It's a budget before the attack, and there's a budget after the attack.
You put things into perspective. So the first attack that I helped remediate afterwards, the attackers were requiring a ransom of 15 million euros.
Wow.
For a company with 2,000 employees or so, because they're like, the attackers are smart. So they had that company had just released a quarterly report where they stated that they had made a profit of, say, 40 million euros.
So they knew they could afford it.
Exactly. So they know they exactly knew.
Yeah,
exactly. But this customer didn't, and which is what we tell every customer: do not pay under any circumstance. But that's and then we rebuilt the environment from scratch, and that's something we are looking into more and more as well, to use WVD as a disaster recovery or a way to get an organization up and running more quickly and possibly even more secure.
Yeah, I worked on a few sort of pen test projects, and I will always remember my first one, where it was going back many years now. And we got a pen tester to come in, and it took him, I think, all of 5 minutes to get complete access to the network. This was back in Windows NT4 days. I'll never forget it, because this guy literally walked in the building, got his laptop, plugged it in, tapped in a few things, downloaded the NT4 primary domain controller database. I can't remember what it's called now, but it should be a flat file. Download your laptop, crack it, boom, there you go. Within 5 minutes, I've got complete access to your whole domain. And
I think that is the essential bit of why WVD needs to be protected, since like I said initially, it's still a Windows VM, it's still on your internal network, it's just the way you connect to it. But once someone reaches your session host, they are in practice in, and therefore you need to protect that first connection, and then also ensure that your session hosts can't reach any sensitive infrastructure, and that there aren't any sensitive credentials on those session hosts. So that's also why it's essential to ensure that do not use an administrative account on your session host if you aren't protecting that session host with very tough security measures before it. Because if an attacker comes to that session host, they can easily extract those credentials and then move ahead into the environment. But at the same time, we have a couple of customers that are using WVD as privileged access workstations, so where they use session hosts exclusively
as a
to
job
manage.
host.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But at that point, they need very complex passwords, multiple MFAs, and fulfill a number of other requirements to get that access.
Cool. So what's your top 3 tips then for securing WVD?
Yeah. So MFA again, and preferably use conditional access, because that gives you that flexibility and that good user experience that you want to have. Second, protect your network, and that goes for your on-prem network, your session host, and how you divide your host pools across various networks. So ensure that you're only allowed to access whatever you should be allowed to access on the internet from a session host, but also going back. So think it through when you do your resource group design, your network design, your host pool design, so that you can configure them using network security groups and Azure Firewall as an example. And the third one, that's harder because there are a lot of things that I would like to add to that. But I think it would be consider the endpoint in these cases as well. Because if you don't do anything with your session and the session policies, you may be able to exfiltrate, but also infiltrate data to your session host and from your session host. So do consider that the endpoint, even though it's a virtual machine running somewhere else, you have a secure transport layer. It's up to you to configure what data you're able to put into that VM and extract from that VM. And that's also why I tend to say it's better to have a very secure endpoint and do your best to even secure that. And that leads me into the topic of like thin clients, that I think we'll see an even bigger increase in thin clients, and also especially in Linux thin clients, since that, in my opinion, is one of the most secure endpoints you can have. And then it's just up to an organization to decide how much should our users be able to do from their endpoints. But do consider the security of the physical endpoint as well as the virtual one, and ensure that you are in complete control of the data that goes in and out of that session host.
Yeah, because one thing which I don't see very often is people like really locking down NSGs. Most deployments I've worked in, I've seen them basically people do any.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what you see out there, but I've never really ever seen in a production environment a really, really locked down NSG. So I don't know, maybe in the future, Microsoft may by default put down the lockdown NSG, and as in you do security first and have to open things up to get things working, rather than just because if you give people any rule,
explicitly open.
They're not going to take the time and effort to try and close things off, right? It's easier to open things up than to close things down. So
yeah, and I think that's also how you consider your virtualization environment. So regardless if it's WVD or anything else, do you consider that to be clients or servers? And I think that Microsoft even said that at some point, that everything which has a graphical user interface is in practice a client. So even if you have Windows Server-based session hosts, you should consider that as clients. And then we get into the entire zero trust aspect, and where you should apply zero trust even to your session hosts. So that's why I really look forward to the full ability and capabilities of doing compliance policies from Intune on session hosts, because I see that as a potential security concern moving forward, especially when session hosts gets bigger and bigger and more concurrent user sessions. And that's where a lot of the security products from Microsoft also need to pick up the pace. Since if you take the Defender for Endpoints as an example, they officially only support 25 concurrent users. And I'm absolutely certain that we'll see bigger session hosts than that. And then we need to ensure that we can catch everything. Otherwise, you could, in theory, just brute force a session host, find the most connected session host, and just add another user to that. And that user can then be malicious, and it would kind of disappear in the rest of the chatter from that machine.
I think that's only temporary, right? While it's in
Yeah.
state. I think long term it's unlimited.
Yeah, it should be. It should be.
Hmm?
And at this moment, I think with Intune and stuff, it's only single session support.
Yeah,
Multi-session support will come. I don't know when, but
I don't think even the product groups know that, and that's since I'm a Microsoft Endpoint Manager MVP, I'm fortunate enough to be able to listen in on multiple product groups, and I know that it's a top priority, but there's no official roadmap for that. But currently, you can definitely manage them with Intune if there is, like you said, is a dedicated and single session host, and multi-session works great for co-management as an example.
Yeah, with the compliance policies and the hybrid model.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Simon, what are you seeing in the wild? Are companies leveraging the hybrid model? So domain join and Azure AD join, so they can leverage Intune and things like compliancy updates and stuff? Or is it something it's completely new for most companies?
I think that's based on the company as such. We have seen a huge uptake on co-management and cloud management gateways from a Microsoft Endpoint Manager point of view. And if you are on that, then you, of course, leverage it on WVD as well. Hybrid Azure AD join, I would say, is close to standard among my customers as well, since you get, at the very least, single sign-on to your cloud services. Co-management, I think that we are still in that quite interesting crossroad where the two worlds of WVD, being the old EUC world and the MEM or physical Windows community, needs to come together and really gather our forces to make the best possible solution. And I believe that we have a couple of touching points already, but MSIX App Attach will definitely be one of the things where we need to come together and see how can we best leverage Microsoft Endpoint Manager together with the much more EUC focused perspective of MSIX App Attach. So I think there's where we are today, that we need to stop having the argument of which way of managing our session host is the best. It's about leveraging the best of both worlds.
It's combining those together and get the most out of it together. Yeah,
because there's still so many things that each side doesn't know about. Like, I'm still doing sessions on Intune management with Intune and say that, and if you have these use cases, you can use FS Logics. And the majority still says, what is that? And it's been around for years and years, and it's a brilliant solution that works for any Windows machine, not just virtual. So I think we have a lot to gain of trying to work more together.
True. Definitely true.
Agreed. Yeah, I think so. That gap between sort of physical and virtual is getting less and less, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think the good, I mean, at the moment, I don't know what you see, but generally when I work in environments, the people who manage the virtual environment are the different people who manage the physical environment.
Yeah.
But we're both trying to get to the same end goal, right? Yeah. So it would make things so much easier as if you essentially want to go to stage, don't you, where I don't care whether it's virtual or whether it's physical.
Yep. Yeah. It's still the same endpoint.
Yeah,
exactly.
I still want it to be protected like this. I still want it to have these applications, and I still want users to log on to it and be able to do this.
Yeah, and that's what I do most of my days working as an architect, ensuring that we can combine this. It's not black or white. You don't need to go full virtualization because it makes very little sense. But at the same time, it makes as little sense to do full physical and full fat clients. Yeah. But that's how each of our groups are still used to. But the combination is just unbeatable. When you get the best of both worlds, you can. Yeah, the regular example is, we want AutoCAD on our like Intune managed devices. Yeah, it works, but it will take a week or so to download, and then use Intune managed fat clients and publish AutoCAD and deploy the rest of the applications. The user won't care, and they will feel that, okay, I was given a very light, good-looking laptop, but I can run AutoCAD or whatever solution as if it were a workstation. I think that's really where we try to get to at some point.
I've got a question for you, Simon, which I'm intrigued by. Obviously, you're a security guy. You're sort of got a lot of history in Microsoft products. You seem to be one of those people who has fallen in the WVD trap. So you blog a lot about WVD, you talk a lot about WVD. So why? What interests you about WVD? What's piqued your interest?
So I will now tell you how I got into it, and it's I don't think I've told anyone this story previously. So I have an old friend who has been in the Citrix community for years and years, and also worked a lot with IGEL, way ahead of WVD. And at one point before Disrupt 2018, he reached out to IGEL and said, "Yeah, I have a good friend who just became MVP, and I got my award in October 2018, and he would like to speak at Disrupt." And I had the intention of doing a session I'd done at a couple of Citrix user groups, so how to keep up to date with Windows updates in the early days of Windows as a service. So that was what I intended to present on. But IGEL got back and said, "Yeah, we want Simon to speak on," I think they named it something like Microsoft Virtual Desktop or something back then. And I just, okay, let's do this. How hard can it be? So I happened to be, I think I was second after Freek Beerson, who spoke about WVD in public, and I had to go through a lot of quite interesting hoops to be able to do that. But it was by pure coincidence that I happened to talk about it as one of the first in the world. But what really caught my attention, and what is still my primary reason for believing in WVD in the way I do, is what I said at that point. It democratizes EUC, because it's the same solution regardless if you're one user or if you're 100,000 users, and it scales depending on your needs. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of it, which is of many overlooked, that is not really that much that's new from an infrastructure point of view, or at least it weren't in the beginning. But the ability to scale, and as a very small organization, run a very secure, very performant RDS infrastructure was what caught my attention, and what I was driving as my main reason to look into it for any organization. So it started like a pure coincidence, and I'm very glad for that coincidence. But it then continued as a way of bringing this wonderful technology to any organization, and really, and now I'm sounding like a Microsoft employee, but really fulfilling their vision about empowering every person and organization on the planet, since this is one of the products where I really feel that they are able to do so.
Good answer.
Thank you. I don't need to rephrase that then.
Oh, perfect. Maybe, Simon, I have a question to you as well. Or maybe we have an announcement to make, because next month will be a very important month. We speak about events. We are frequently talking at events such as Microsoft Meets Community, which was in December last year for the last time. And maybe you can tell us a bit more what's happening next month.
Yep. So next month will be the first WVD Tech Fest, or WVD Tech Festival, which myself and Patrick are organizing. And we are fortunate enough to have a great group of speakers, including Neil and Stefan, joining us for a full day free event on WVD. So I think we're up to, is it 24 speakers or something like that?
We have 24 speakers, 18 of them are MVPs. The rest are partner speakers, or we have two very great, actually every one of them are very, very great speakers, and we are very honored to have them. But when you see the knowledge that comes together that day, this is something that hasn't been there before. And you see the impact of WVD, especially that day, when you see the responsibility that speakers show to the community itself of showing their knowledge, explaining complex features in a full day only for the community.
Yeah. And I think anyone, regardless if you're just starting with WVD or if you have been in the business for years, can get a lot of that day, either because of the great content that our speakers will be delivering, or just by networking and finding quite interesting products, community solutions, or people to talk to So I'm really looking forward to it, and very happy for all of our speakers that are investing a lot of time in making the best possible content. And we still have to announce our keynote speaker, but we will wait a short while with doing that while we finalize the last details. But if everything goes according to plan, we will have a very honored guest joining us.
It's not
I'm really
Donald
looking forward
Trump,
to
is it?
Oh, that would be something. I would love to have a debate between Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. So we may be able to sort that out.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to you guys for setting this event up. I know how much work it must take. It's going to be a really, really good resource for the community, and hopefully it can be a regular thing as well, right?
Yep.
Yes.
We hope so.
Yes, actually, we plan to do it on a yearly basis. For the moment, we will see the attention on the response of the people who are attending. But we have to say thank you as well, Neil and Stefan, and for all the work and for establishing the WVD community.
Yeah.
And I think the past year made or showed us that we can solve a lot of issues, technical ones, personal ones. But one I have learned for myself personally is with all those people here in the podcast, that if we believe not only in technology, also on the human side, and to share our knowledge, that we can achieve much more. And this means that WVD for myself is not only a service on Azure, it's something that brought friends together. And this is the reason why I want to say thanks, not only to all of you guys, also to the community itself, which made the WVD community what it is today.
Yes.
Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to have this podcast. We wouldn't be able to create such events. So this is exactly the thanks to all of you guys out there.
I totally agree with that.
Yep. And just wait for our presentation, because it's going to be about that very topic.
Interesting.
We'll see.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, and I also, while we're on the subject, I want to congratulate yourself and Stefan for your MVPs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many days have you been an MVP now?
It's
The 12th day. It's the 12th day, actually.
It's already been that long. Well, but to be honest, that came as for me it was a big surprise.
Yeah.
And I think even for Patrick, because at the end of December we both received a Microsoft badge for the community heroes, and it's something they don't give to MVPs. That was the reason why, for example, Neil didn't receive it. But then, so in my case, I thought, okay, so this is the award for all the hard work, all the time and effort we put in last year in setting up the community and doing all those things we did together. And then, bam, suddenly on the 1st of January, I received an email from the Microsoft MVP administrator with a congratulations. So it was a big surprise, but I'm very, very honored to be an MVP right now.
You guys fully deserve it, because I think you both are what the MVP community is about. It's all about knowledge sharing, helping each other out, and
bringing people together, learning from each other, helping each other, support each other.
Indeed. Yep. And if I can maybe give a tip to somebody out there, because I have lessons learned maybe for that. I am also very happy to be part of the community, MVP community, but I have to tell you that this cannot be a goal for one of you guys. If you are interested in the program itself, you should take other goals. And my personal goal was to connect with people. Okay, Corona and the COVID situation made this nearly incredible to meet each other in person. But one thing I have learned, and it started with actually the guy on my left side, Neil, remotely on my left side at least, when he identified my blog post, first of all. And I felt very humbled, because I wouldn't expect somebody that fast to realize, oh, there's a German guy writing something about a service probably 1,000 others will do currently. So for me, it was very an honor. So to connect with people, this is the thing you should look at when you want to become an MVP at a later stage. This has nothing to do with a goal. It is not a goal. And nobody will see you as a better person. You are actually the same person that you have been before. So the tip I can give all of you guys that are interested in the MVP program: connect, share, and learn from each other, because you might fail, and all of us fail during our daily business. But just because of an award, you are not a hero. And we aren't heroes because we have that award, probably. So all of our goals is to share what we have with the full energy we have, and we want to invest in the things that make fun for us in First Sight. That's a tip I
Absolutely.
can give all of you.
It's perfectly said, Patrick.
Amazing,
Absolutely.
Patrick.
Yeah.
I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
I don't hope so.
But no, it's definitely true.
That was just a very important shout out I want to make, because
Yeah.
since that 12 days, I can't tell you how many people already asked to achieve this. And it's not an achievement, nothing you can achieve by asking. Of course, you could try, but most of people will refuse it, of course. But this is not the topic here. It's about being honest with yourself, with the community itself. Otherwise, you can't grow.
And eventually you will be rewarded one way or another way. And if it's an MVP status, is it a Microsoft Badger, is it another award? And that's just a very big thank you from the community, from Microsoft, to say, well, thank you for all your hard work, all your time and effort you put into it. But as Patrick said, it shouldn't be your goal. It shouldn't be your one goal to get that status. It's everything around it. And I would literally do the same what we did last year if I didn't receive it. So next year we will do the same and even better. We will bring those people together, help each other, mentoring.
Exactly. And we see where the journey goes. So I see and expect a lot of changes in the next years for all of us. It starts with WVD. Nobody knows where it ends. And it will be an exciting journey, of course.
Yeah, and we will see if this is the year of WVD.
Is that still a question? Wasn't it 2020 the year?
I think there are arguments about that.
It's been the year of VDI since, I think, 2014.
Yeah, something like that.
But I think we can honestly say that 2020 was for WVD the year of WVD, because of all the Corona, working from home. It had so much impact on the complete future of WVD as a service itself.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And also for all those Microsoft Teams engineers who got bored because they finalized their migrations. So what is the next step? Move to WVD. So that was the reason why I came to WVD, because I was doing Teams migrations, so data migrations to SharePoint Online, helping customers with Microsoft Teams. But I wanted the special kick that WVD gave.
Yeah, I think
I understand that.
I got into WVD literally the month before coronavirus. That's when I started my job at New Signature, specializing on WVD.
Yeah.
Do you guys still remember your first ever deployment or test or something you did with WVD? Because I indeed can remember mine, and it was on Ventura, and it was on my holiday. And I just saw a post about WVD, about the public preview. And I was sitting right to the pool with a mojito in my one hand. And I was just setting up my first host pool, one session host. And in like 15, 20 minutes, I could log in to that machine. And it was all working. And that was my first experience with WVD.
Yeah, I think mine was, I wanted to, because I was a Citrix guy, and I wanted to learn about it. So I wrote a blog post on it, on deploying WVD. So that's my first thing. Again, yeah, it took me like literally 15, 20 minutes. And after that, I just started tweeting about it, saying, wow, this is amazing. Listening to Jim Moyle speak on it. And that's where it all started. And that's where we are now.
And like I said, I think my first experience and what I remember is Disrupt, which at that time had, I think, 500 attendees, and I had in total on my 2 sessions on the same topic 400 of those 500. And then, of course, the first Microsoft Meets community, where I were one of the speakers. That was quite amazing as well, and see the enormous interest of WVD already at that first Microsoft Meets community. So that was great fun, and I had loved to be in Amsterdam to do that session, but we all know what happened. So but I think I don't remember my first deployment, but definitely my first community engagements on it.
Yeah, because I remember that event was supposed to be 100 people.
Yeah, exactly.
They put it online and it ended up being like over 1,000 people, right?
Yeah. I think we maxed out at 1,400 attendees on that live stream. Yeah.
Wow.
So Christian was just over the moon. Really, like you said, it was supposed to be like a kind of VIP event in a small room at Microsoft at Schiphol.
Yeah.
And then, we can't do this. So let's do online instead. And then they had 2,500 people registering.
Wow.
So that is still my second largest session I've done, I believe. But it was great fun.
That was my largest session on Microsoft Meets Community, definitely. Together with you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are we approaching time here, guys? I think.
Well, I seriously don't know. I didn't know when we started. So
I didn't put the timer on as per usual. So
I think we have a good session for sure.
I think that too.
Good. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? There's only one thing I've got. Probably one for all of you guys, actually. But we'll start with Simon. Where do you see the next 12 months?
Oh, that's a good question. I think from a WVD point of view that we'll see a bigger investment from other product groups. So, and that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing the MEM team, the Azure AD team, the Office 365 team, all of the other product groups embracing the possibilities with WVD. So I think that's where we will catch up, where the one Microsoft really can work together to bring the best possible experience to it. So that's what I'm anticipating in terms of WVD. And in general, like I think we, like Spencer Pitts from VMware have said, we have the 3 Rs. We have the React, which was everyone did in March, April, where we did whatever we could to keep businesses running. We have the Recover, where we fixed all the issues we made during the React phase. And now we have the ability to rethink and do things in a new way. And I'm absolutely convinced that WVD will be a part of a lot of organizations rethinking their infrastructure.
I agree, and I think especially when at the moment a lot of them sort of rollouts have been blocked by, say, single sign-on capabilities, stuff like that. And I think when native Azure AD comes into play, and then you get all the Intune stuff on back of that, that's going to be pretty good. So,
and they are forcing people to use, instead of GPOs, the configuration profiles, the endpoint manager thing. So then that's the reason why I always say that they should already set up a hybrid environment and already have a play with it to see when Microsoft is finally going to allow the Azure AD integration with WVD. You already are familiar with the configuration part of the endpoint manager, and you can just move away from your legacy or traditional GPOs and stuff and configure it more the modern way with WVD and physical virtual. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Absolutely. I would say thank you, Simon, for being our guest today. One last tip I have for the community, especially if you're testing out the security features for Windows Virtual Desktop, especially the previously released screen capture protection. If you're presenting this to a community and you have it enabled, you will see it works like a charm. Really, Microsoft product team, you did a very great job on that. I experienced that because I wanted to present something, and the screen was just invisible. I was not able to show it to the community. Thanks, it's working great. So if too much security is also not good for your presentations. That's a lesson learned from my side.
If you don't see the screen capture is working.
And this is actually a good sign.
Yeah.
A good sign for something which is in public preview. So great job here. It's one of those security features which we experienced even today.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and best of luck for the future for all of you. And looking forward to following the WVD community in 2021 as well.
Cool. Thank you for coming on, Simon, and take care.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.